Mary is currently taking care of some intermission refreshments. I will do the introduction for our next speaker, who also happens to be a good friend of mine, just in the couple of months that he's here. So Achim Ladwig is actually representing Europe for us. He is a former speechwriter for the Vice President of the European Union. He's also a lecturer at a number of universities in Europe and Germany. And currently here, he is a European Fellow in residence. His topic today is a really interesting one. Okay, Achim has actually toured with many EU officials where they try to do live town hall meetings. You can imagine the value of a town hall meeting. You get people together, and then leaders get a chance to speak to them directly. What he's going to talk about is, can this idea be scaled? What is a vision for potentially a future town hall meeting, especially as it applies to Europe? Achim, thank you for joining us, and welcome to the stage.
Guten Abend, vielen Dank, dass alle gekommen sind. Bonsoir, merci beaucoup pour venir. Olas, atolo. For the sake of time, and as I'm standing not between you and the bar, but between you and the break, I will stop here with the language bit, but it is important, and I will come back to that in a second, right? Now, I would like to show you a few pictures and talk about an old concept, town hall meetings. Oh my God, that's 18th century. But I hope I will convince you that we, at the European Commission, transformed that into the 21st century. Now, let me show you this picture. I'm not asking who this person is. I guess 100% of people here know who she is. I guess 100% of people who are here know, roughly speaking, what she stands for, right, left, right, middle of the aisle, basically where she is, where she's attempting to go, etc. That's easy. Second picture, I must apologize for the gender imbalance. It's not my fault. I must also apologize that I may not have kept all the people who aspire to be a candidate for a candidate, but it was difficult to gather them. But here again, maybe 97% of you know all the guys, but at least 100% of you know what they stand for, what they want, and what they're going to represent, more or less. Is that right? I see everyone nodding, so I can't be too wrong. Last picture, I'm not asking this question because then I would probably get a 150% rate. I mean, everyone knows it. More importantly even, I guess every single person in this room knows what his job description is, right? What are his tasks? What does he stand for? Why is he commander-in-chief, etc., right? I see everyone seems to be fine, so we can go quickly ahead. Now let's turn to the other side of the Atlantic. That's Europe. I have to simplify it a little bit because Europe is complicated, at least from the outside. You see 28 countries who form the European Union, and yes, there are a few others which are not part of the EU. I haven't said not yet, but they are not part of the EU. But 28 countries, which means 28 national governments, 24 languages, I repeat that, 24 languages, right? Are joining a European Union, right? And by the way, 507 million people. Right. So, for all the differences between the EU and the US, and for all the similarities between the EU and the US, I think there's one thing I'm pretty sure we have in common. And that's a perceived distance between the people, i.e. you, citizens, the people, and those in, Washington or Brussels, the federal government, far away, remotely, those people. I think that's probably a similar problem in the US and the EU. And in Brussels, we have been really scratching our head. How can we actually bridge the gap between those remotely aware people, high-level politicians who sit behind facades, window facades, don't talk to the ordinary people? And that's not easy. So what we tried is actually as another concept, which has not really a tradition in Europe. This is this town hall meeting. Now, if I use the word town hall meeting, what springs to your mind? Don't worry, I'm not going to go on an opinion poll. But I guess many of you will immediately think, oh yeah, Vermont, New Hampshire, right? To think, yeah, they're doing it. Yeah, for 100 years it works well in a very localized manner. People know each other. It's very democratic, etc. Never heard about that on a big scale in the US, probably. I haven't heard that. Or maybe, let's be very frank with each other, it's not really under Chatham House rules here, but I say it anyhow. If I say town hall meeting, maybe you think about, yes, there's this candidate who passed recently through Iowa or New Hampshire or another state, met the waitress or the truck driver, engaged with some citizen, and maybe he or she has never been seen again afterwards. So that may be also another concept of town hall meeting. Now, we really try to do it different. With we, I don't blame you if you know all of them. Many Europeans don't know all of them. The guy in the middle is probably the most important one, Jean-Claude Juncker, the president of Europe, the European Union, almost similar to the president of the United States, I have to say that. And the others are his team, the commissioners. Now, let's be frank with each other. They have to compete also with 28 national governments, but also, if I may say that, if I were to show you a picture of the entire US government, I'm not 100% sure whether 100% of you would identify as the Secretary of Agriculture or Forestry or whatsoever. So let's put that into perspective. But that's the European government, so to speak. And we tried to do it differently. This is a picture of Viviane Reding, the former vice president of the European Commission, who really put her heart into trying a different experience. She was sick and tired of Brussels being accused to be too far from the people. And let's face it, I'm the last one to defend high-level politicians. But if you actually sit in such a building remotely, physically remotely from people, it's also difficult to really engage. You can't just walk out and have nothing better to do and ask you, what's your opinion about European politics? I mean, you would think, what's a strange guy, probably called the police. I mean, and anyhow, it's a bit arbitrary to walk around in Brussels, European quarter, and ask this guy, or him, or he, or her. Maybe you're a consultant, whatever. You're not really representing the people. So what we really tried is, and she was really good at that, for around 2 years, she and fellow commissioners engaged in more than 50 town hall meetings. We call them actually citizens' dialogues. This is not about semantics. If you use a German word, Bürgerdialog, sounds a little bit better than town hall. But I mean, that's about linguistic. Let's say town hall meeting equals citizens' dialogue, right? More than 50 of those. And a few futures I wanted to share with you. First of all, averaged duration probably 2 hours. So it was not just a quick one, so really 2 hours fully engaged, right? On the spot, every single question was possible. We had on average 350 people attending. Well, sometimes smaller events with 100 people, sometimes up to 400 people. And now I come to a very important point. Everyone there was voluntary. There is no pre-selection. And we were very careful not to pre-select people there, because it should be a genuine effort. And last but not least, and I say this quite proudly, you can do the math yourself how many people attended in person. Almost everyone spoke on his or her own behalf and not on behalf of specific interest groups. And that's the hardest thing to achieve if you don't want to pre-select. I'm not sure whether we can maintain that, but that was a very good experience, right? Now, let's look at the challenge. Again, Europe. 507 million people and 24 languages. I mean, commissioners have a few other things to do than just to travel around and speak with people, although it's important. So it's a real challenge. Now, what we did for that is we brought in technology. Now, the first thing I can offer you, maybe you will look a bit bored then, I said we did live streaming. Oh no, that's not really innovative. I mean, live streaming on the internet has been there for ages. But let's not kid ourselves. How many of you read the New York Times or watch the public news and learn about an event through the lenses of a reporter who said, I was there and I have reported? How many of you have actually ever sit in a real press conference? Or how many of you have watched the State of the Union live? I mean, I haven't much done of that, right? You will not believe it. The live stream got clicks in the 6-digit one. Maybe 6-digit one is not much if you think about 507 million people. But for a start, for the very first time that we did it, people sat on a Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock and watched that debate. I mean, that's not bad, I would argue, as a start. Now, of course, we took it a step further. I mean, if I say we tweeted it, how boring. Yes, but we did a little bit more. You can actually see here something which is not terrifically innovative, a Twitter wall. You may have used it on other occasions. But the cool thing there is really you have kind of two conversations running, sometimes synchronized, sometimes not synchronized. So you would have a politician fully engaged with citizens, And you could see in the background an interesting conversation about the conversation. And sometimes either citizens, the moderator, or the politician would then engage via the Twitter wall, either by even orally answering or tweeting or getting into the conversation. So there are various means to interact with it. And with all that, we estimate that we have amplified the attendance by almost 100. Now again, if you want to talk it down and say, yeah, there are 507 million people, that's not much. Yeah, but let's give it a start, let's try it. And an amplification factor of 100 is not too bad for a political debate, if you want so. But it was really face-to-face engagement and discussion. And last but not least, I'm standing here in front of a young generation which is supposedly tech-savvy. And yes, we did it. Also, we in good old Europe did it. We tried a couple of Google Hangouts and similar things. Not just for the fun of it and to show how tech-savvy we are, but the Google Hangout surprisingly had a greater attendance, even or perception than the real one. Because many people really wanted to engage in a conversation. You may think it's all about face-to-face. Yeah, it's about face-to-face, but it was very positively surprising that the physical distance wasn't just that perceived, because it was about a real dialogue. And it was a real dialogue between people who usually don't really connect and don't expect that they actually connect, right? So I come to a major challenge which will not go away. And I have absolutely arbitrarily picked those two people, and I don't want to be quoted on that. Just to give you this example, this guy is by accident from Germany. He's a great guy. I mean, he's a European commissioner. He speaks German, obviously, and he understands and speaks English. He understands French. He doesn't speak Danish, Italian, and probably Spanish. He's not to be blamed for that. He's not to be paid to do that. And he can do a good job even if he were to speak only German. The same applies for the lady here, who is a European commissioner from Poland, who speaks Polish, German, etc., but probably not Maltese, right? Is she to be blamed for that? No. Certainly not. But that's a constant challenge we do have in Europe. That may sound very simple to you and you know it, but think for 1 second about the daily consequence that has, right? And you may all argue, we all speak English, but you here, particularly in Fletcher, you do know that the translation of words is not just a mechanical thing. And the fact that you all speak a bit of English, like me, or some better, of course, does not necessarily mean that you can actually transpose an idea and a concept, right? I don't need to convince you. So my hope is, I really hope that the guys around the corner at the MIT have something in their chest drawer, which, you know, a small box, which gives this automatic translation. Maybe that was a dream 50 years ago. Maybe we are a little bit closer to that today. Now, I would like to come to a close with a final remark. And I don't want to steal anything from me here's presentation, otherwise you would be at odds with me. But I saw in your announcement you have put the word TV, television, which is an old thing, right? The point is, I'm very suspicious if someone comes to me and says, I have invented a new technology thing and that's the old dancing, old singing solution. I'm very suspicious. That usually doesn't fly. And the success we had with that is, I put it a little bit more simply. We have taken an old concept, face-to-face, which doesn't seem to be more modern today, and which has worked because we have enriched it with new technology, as I have explained to you, and last but not least, we have embedded it also in a traditional media mix. We had newspapers reporting about it, supplements, we had the television reporting about it, we have used those channels. So all in all, it's a face-to-face dialogue between the federal level and the people, so to speak, and the more technology can help, the better in this particular challenging environment. Thank you so much.
Great, and so that we can accelerate things, but I will make a 30-second pitch, and I will remind you that a 2003 Fletcher alum has come all the way from New York today, and she has made a documentary that you do not want to miss. Yes, I'm pitching you to stay here, but it just, please take a break. But this is really, I think, a star performance of our show coming up right after the break. See you in about 10 minutes. There's some cookies and water and some drinks out there. Okay.